Welcome back to the final round. Well, coronavirus has disrupted the movie industry, causing studios to rethink their release plans. Disney making the announcement that its next Pixar movie, Soul, is going to premiere on Disney Plus on Christmas Day. So here to talk a little bit more about how the industry is adapting to the current environment, we want to bring in Scott Pryor. He's a writer, producer, and director of the independent film Tulsa. And Scott, great to have you on the show. Congratulations on your new film. Let's first just talk about pandemic's impact on the movie business, because of course we've had the news that a number of movie theaters are closing. We also know that a lot of the film festivals are going virtual. How do you see that changing the industry going forward?
Sure, and thank you, Shauna, for having me on the show. I think the pandemic's absolutely hurt the film industry. One of the issues we face going into theaters is for the first 2 weeks, very few people knew that the theaters were even open. And so just overcoming that hurdle, because we would get messages like, oh, the theaters in our area aren't open. It's like, yes, they are. So just convincing people, number one, that the theaters are open. And then, of course, number two, a lot of people just didn't want to go out to the theaters. Now the theaters are social distancing. They require masks. They're extremely clean. They're extremely safe. And they're limiting the number of seats and everything. But it's just been very, very, very difficult during the pandemic for those two major hurdles.
So you have a new movie out, Tulsa. How have you had to adjust your expectations just in terms of the fact that we're having trouble getting people out to the theaters? One, that they even know that they're open, but two, also the fact that people are still a little bit hesitant to go into the theater. So what kind of financial impact is that having on your film?
It's having a pretty big financial impact because, just looking at the numbers and looking at, so we've had several theaters where literally they're packing out and they have to turn people away at the door because there's only a certain amount of seats. And then, of course, if your movie's playing in theaters and nobody knows theaters are open, obviously, it's going to hurt your box office. And then just convincing people, look, it's safe, go out, take the family out and go out to the theater. So those are, these are certainly unprecedented times for movies. And but we're fortunate and we're thankful that we've done very well despite these obstacles, but it is certainly having a huge impact on movies.
Scott, there's been a lot of talk of how this pandemic has only accelerated this push going straight to streaming instead of going through theaters. And I'm wondering how you're thinking about the distribution process as you look ahead to your next project right now. Was that kind of an inevitable move? I mean, do you think that theaters are still going to have its space, or is it really going to be about distributing on both channels?
Sure. I pray to God that theaters survive. I really do. I'm really worried with theaters and their whole, financial, their financial forecast and outlook. So I think the push to streaming, the great thing about streaming is, a lot of independent filmmakers have a platform. But the great thing about theaters is if you can get your movie in theaters, you just have a wider footprint. You have a wider base that you can go off of. And then, so the first thing, of course, is if you can get into theaters and that kind of prime the pump, and then do a move to obviously the digital platforms. And then, with digital, there's so many films on digital that the key on digital is placement. Can you trend? What kind of placement do you have? So that then becomes a challenge. But the great thing is about digital is it allows a lot of independent filmmakers and other filmmakers shots to get placement and access on those different. So I know for us, we're going to piggyback. Obviously we're going to go to digital. And we're talking to distributors now, and other distributors have reached out to us. And so our goal is maybe the next 2 to 4 months go on digital, but we're gonna try to push the theater run as long as we can. Hopefully, pick up more theaters in the next several weeks. But certainly go to digital again in the next 2 to 4 months.
Hey Scott, Rick Newman here. Just real quickly. What is happening with production at this point? You may be a little too busy just distributing and promoting your current film, but how empty is the pipeline for new films?
Sure. So production for our film company, what we're focusing on now is obviously the theatrical release and then the electronic release. But I've heard of a lot of productions. Some productions are shutting down. Some productions are waiting until everything kind of clears out. But it's definitely COVID's definitely adding a wrinkle because you have so many, when you're filming, you have so many departments coming in, one right on top of each other, and it's such a fast-paced, fast-moving thing, especially for the indie films, that when you have to social distance and there's all these layers of protection and everything, it just slows productions down, and it greatly increases the cost of production. So for us, we film typically our films in about 20 days, which that's flying. And so for us, we're just focusing on writing and developing scripts, because that's a long lead time for us to get a really, really succinct, tight story. So that's what we did. We're focusing right now on Tulsa and the distribution, and then we're just focusing on stories and script writing, because obviously we can do that very safely and very very easily.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.